To those who may recognize me, I was here before. Please take my slide. Wait, is it work now? Hold up. Which way do I point it? Is it working? It worked just now. There we go. So which way do I point it? That way? Over there? Okay, yeah. So I was here last year. Okay, I was here twice. I got the chance to moderate 2 separate panels last year where I spoke on game development and education, and also I got to speak on the change between being a student developer and being an industry developer, which was really cool. But now I get to be here to yap for 40 minutes, just me. So, you're all stuck in here with me. Thank you so much. Right, so, okay, my name is Sophie Azlan, as mentioned previously. I am the co-founder of indie studio Make With Friends, and also by day, I am a lecturer over at UW Malaysia, where I also teach game development, and later in the day, I am working on indie studio things. I'm also a member of the Game Awards Future Class 2022 cohort. It's like this thing where it's a bunch of people who are supposed to represent the diverse and inclusive future of the game development industry on a global scale. And also I'm a council member of Outcrowd Malaysia. Outcrowd Malaysia is a grassroots group dedicated to the providing a space for women and marginalized folk within the game development scene of Malaysia. We have an event tomorrow as well, so social media, stay tuned to that. Cool. So let's just get this straight. Making games is hard. There's so much that goes into the process of it. I think everybody here can agree, regardless if you're a developer or not, to actually get something moving. We're not even talking about the shipping process. We're just like, I made Mario jump. That in itself is already really difficult. But then now we have the added difficulty of what if we want to make the game that is going to reach higher standards? How do we get it to be exposed on a more global scale? That in itself is its own set of challenges, which is why I also say making games right now is really hard, right? I mean, can I see a show of hands of anybody here who is an active developer or is studying game development right now? So everybody can agree it's hard. Great, okay, I'm preaching to the choir. But the question is, right, why hard, right? So you can see the storefront nowadays is so extremely saturated. It is easier than ever for anybody to make a game and put it out there, right? The storefront, if you go on Steam, there's so many games added each and every day. How is your game going to be the one that stands out? There's also this large influx of graduates. It's kind of hard to stand out just among your peers. There are so many institutions that are producing game development courses nowadays, and everybody's going to have their own take on how to craft a game developer, so to speak, right? So because there's just so many people coming in, can the industry keep up with all of the talent? Speaking just locally, we're not even talking about going international. And when I say international, I just mean Singapore. So it's really just there, but we're already facing such difficulties. Job market is a fight at the moment. It's always been a fight, but it's especially difficult right now. And this is, again, not even touching on what's happening on a global scale. This is touching on this, battling it out over LinkedIn. It's rough, yeah. And then also, you can't really connect with others in a post-pandemic world. I'm pretty sure that there are some of you that finished your studies during the pandemic, or you even got your first job during the pandemic. So trying to reconnect with those social skills in a workplace environment, it can prove to be difficult, right? And then on top of that, there's the regular game development difficulties. So you just have all this additional stuff on top of making the game work. We're not even talking about making it fun. We're not even thinking about that. We're talking about making it functional, right? Exactly. Okay, so mentorship, of course, it's not going to solve this. It is not this end-all, be-all magical situation. But mentorship can act as a form of support, and it can help us to move forward, right? My case is that mentorship is going to sort of take down a lot of barriers and reduce a lot of the what's going on in the industry. One of the most difficult parts is that the people who are coming into things really new, so many things feel like these vast unknowns, and all you have to rely on are the horror stories that you hear from your friends or the horror stories that you read about online. So you're going to be taking all those feelings with you into what is likely your first job. And it is going to influence how you act and how you do things. But if you had a mentor maybe along the way before you get to that point, it can sort of clear the fog a little bit, right? Right. So let's just talk about like the overall benefits of being a mentee and also being a mentor, because it is going to be beneficial for both sides of the spectrum ultimately. As a mentee, right, you get to engage with the industry. You get to talk to them on a personalized level. You gain valuable insight from another person's experience, right? You get to hear them out for their stories, see them as human, right? When we hear these stories and we read about them online, it's very easy to sort of be like, I heard about a guy who did a thing. But then what if the guy had a name? What if the guy had a face? And the guy was real and he was here. We're all just guys in the world, right? So that really helps to sort of humanize the experience and make things a little bit easier to swallow, I suppose. And then also you get to build your own network outside of your usual comfort zone, especially for those who are coming from institutions, right? Your network is essentially your classmates. And then your network is whoever your classmates ended up like working at. It's like, oh, I know a guy who used to be my classmate, now he's working there. And then I'm working here. And then, oh, I know about that company because he told me about this because we're all together in the batch. You know, that's it. That's your network completely. So if you have a mentor, they can sort of help you out and be like, there's not just those people, there's other people. Touch grass, meet someone new, can also lah, right? And then also, you get to ask the questions that you may not be able to ask in your usual institutions, right? It can be difficult to go up to a lecturer or, you know, maybe even somebody who is working, and then you go like, I heard this happened. What do I do? They may not be able to give you an answer that you feel is, I don't know, the best. But then if you talk to somebody who's maybe a bit more specialized, if you talk to somebody who's living through that or has lived through that situation that you're so worried about, it can give you some further insight. Maybe it can ease your heart a bit. Maybe it can make you feel more stressed, but you would have heard it from the horse's mouth, essentially. Conversely, if you have the opportunity to be a mentor, right, you have a chance to be the bridge between the incoming talent and who is already there. Something that we do notice is like, not to say information is being purposely gatekept, but it's like, you know, sometimes you've been in the industry for so long, when you start talking to new people about some of the stuff that you faced, even in the most vague sense, they don't get it, purely because they just do not have that experience, right? So, you know, maybe you'll see like, oh, I see, these are the things that they're worried about. Maybe I can find a way to, I guess, shape my story and my experience to make it easier for them to understand, so that when they become somebody that I'm working with, then it's not going to be such a big freak out. They're already ready. They can hit the ground running, industry ready, and all of that, right? Yeah, as a mentor, you also get to engage with their struggles and concerns and address them head on. You know, you're going to be the mentor, and they're talking to you. And they're the ones who are saying, I'm so scared of being laid off so quickly into the job. Is there anything that you as a mentor, as somebody who's already working, that you can say to ease that worry? Or anything that you could recommend that they do to prepare in case that is a situation that they may be put in, right? So they're hearing it directly from somebody who's living that life, experiencing it head on, as opposed to hearing it as like, I found out from a guy who went to school with a guy, who knows another guy, who knows my mom, who knows my uncle, you know? So rather than be like, it's just, right. And then also you have to learn about the type of people that are aiming to be your next colleague. You know, to those who are already working in industry right now, you don't know. You might literally be sitting next to your next colleague. You know, they could suddenly sit down on Monday and be like, I just passed the test. Hi, I saw you last weekend. And you're going to go, okay. So you never know. We are at such an event where all these kinds of people get to mix, which is so fantastic. But truly, talent can come from anywhere. You don't know what's going to happen. Right. So let's just talk about, like, for the mentees. I do want to get a little bit further into detail about why mentorship is so important for the mentee specifically. Okay. Yes, that's it. So, you know, can mentorship help, right? No more linking in, I want to clock out, right? My portfolio bad, but I don't know why, right? These are like based on things I've heard from actual students. These are based on things I've heard from my actual like ex-batchmates, basically. So it's like, these are real worries. These are real people things. Yes, they do that. They're like, oh my God, okay? That's like a real thing. So can mentorship actually help with all of these things? And the answer is, broadly, yes. By definition, by good old bestydictionary.com, Mentorship is the activity of giving a younger or less experienced person help and advice over a period of time, especially at work or school. Bear in mind that mentorship does not exclusively apply to simply the work part of your life, but more often than not, it's something that's used within career development. And it's not necessarily something that comes to you when you are starting to work. You know, you can find mentorship opportunities even as a student. The whole point is that you are ready to engage with a professional to find out more about something and grow as an individual, right? So then what is the point actually though, right? Can a mentor solve all my problems? Do I just have like a guy on speed dial that I can text? Like 2 a.m., WhatsApp, voice note, hi sir, actually I'm very scared. I have a job interview tomorrow. What do I wear? How do I act? What do I say? Do I print out my portfolio, but it's all full of GIFs? Do I still print it out on paper? What do I do? No, right? They cannot solve all your problems. They can give you answers if you ask questions that can be answered, but no. But they can do so much more than just solve all your problems, right? So mentorship, in a nutshell, it is many things. It is allyship. It is connection building. It is feedback. It is a relationship. Think about it as a two-way street, right? As a mentee, they're only going to give you the answers that are as good as what you give them, you know? It's not to say like you can't ask stupid questions. There are no stupid questions because it's just, if you ask a question that's like weird, it's coming from a place of ignorance or it's coming from a place of genuine curiosity. You know, we always want to believe that everybody has the best intentions for everything when they ask all sorts of things. But at the same time, you know, you've got to make sure that you're asking questions that can be answered in the first place, you know? So, I don't know this company, do they like the color blue? My hair is very blue color. Will I get fired? Like, I don't know if they can answer that. What if they don't even work there? But if you ask something else, like, my portfolio consists of a lot of 3D models of the environment, but I would like to transition into doing 3D art of characters. What are the next natural steps I should take to beef up my portfolio? That is a question that can be answered, especially if you're talking to another artist as a mentor, right? So again, it is allyship. They are there to support you. It is also connection building. It's a way for you to meet somebody within the industry, build your own network. And also it's feedback. You know, you can just be like, I'm not getting anything with this portfolio. What do I do next? How can it be improved, right? Then maybe they are in a position where they can answer that. It is ultimately a relationship. It's something that you have to work on. You know, it'll be difficult if your mentor is somebody who's like, oh, you know, text me every 3 months. That is like, I don't know how much progress you could really make in that kind of connection, in that relationship. But if you maintain it, if you treat them like a person, they're not just a resource well, then, you know, something good should come out of it. Right, so if and then, right? Let's talk about it. If the mentee's portfolio, if your portfolio, it's not landing opportunities, the mentor can advise them on how to better improve, right? If the mentee is struggling in a current role, position, or project, the mentor could potentially provide some insight that can suggest opportunities for resolution, right? You know, not just like, sir, please help me, my friend, he hates me, my group project want to die. Like you say that, I don't know how much they can help you. But if you say like, oh, sorry to bother you, I'm having some difficulties in my group assignment right now. Somebody here is just not putting in the work that we need to be done and the deadline's coming up. I'm not sure how to proceed. What would you recommend? Okay, that makes sense. That is a question that can be answered, right? It's just a question about structuring. Sometimes your intention is there, but it's just not structured in a way that can be answered, right? And then also, a mentee is looking for ways to add to or expand on their current project. This is where the mentor, especially if they are maybe like they know a couple people in industry, they can recommend somebody that you can meet up with. They can add you to an email thread, you know, and then it's all on you to make the connection fully happen. But the point is that the mentor has the network and has made the introduction. So these are some of the things that a mentor could do for you. Cool, right? Basically, what a mentor can do for you ultimately is to inspire and motivate you. You should talk to them and be like, oh man, yeah, right? They should also provide you with a sense of where and how to move forward. You know, pretty difficult if you get matched with a mentor who's like, I don't know, man, your stuff's kind of ass. Like, that's not going to help. But if they tell you how and where you can improve, they can recommend avenues for you to make things happen, then that's great. That is what they should be doing for you. And then also they should listen to and at least try to understand your situation. Of course, there will never be a truly perfect fit, but we can always hope for the best, right? And they should never make you feel disrespected or uncomfortable. Something that a lot of students have said in the past is that, "Aya, Misa, I will just tolerate it. Because if not, what else do I have?" You have so much more. You do not have to tolerate somebody just because they're talented. If they suck, move on, you know? So an ideal mentor should never make you feel less than. And everybody should truly remember that, because we cannot keep elevating people who suck, you know? Right. So especially for those who are attending the Mentor Cafe afterwards, please keep these things in mind, right? You should prepare, who are you ultimately? And who are you going to be? And then why, right? And I will elaborate. So who are you, right? The mentors need to know at a baseline where you're coming from, what is it that you actually want to do and everything. Like, you know, if you just come in there and be like, I like to play video games. You don't even say what games you like. Like, where are we coming from, right? I like to play Souls-like. What Souls-like, you know? It doesn't say anything. So you need us, well, we need you to really tell us who exactly we're dealing with so we know what is the best way to navigate the whole situation, right? And then also, who are you going to be? Who are you aspiring to be? The easiest way to go about it is like if there's somebody in the industry who really stands out to you and you're like, I would like to have a similar trajectory to this person. Or I would like to work at this kind of studio. You come in there, you say like, I'm a student and I'd really like to work at a studio that focuses on original IP. I'd really like to do story-driven original IP. I love to write. Okay, we can work with that. We can figure it out, right? But if you don't tell us these things, we cannot read your mind, and we may not be able to give you the best experience, right, as a mentor. So finally, there is also like the why. Why do you want that future for yourself? You know, you say like, I want to work on original IP. Why specifically original IP? Why not outsource work? It is completely valid, you know, but why is it not attractive to you? We would like to know. Or like, oh, I only want to do a mobile game. I don't want to do PC console. Okay, why? What's up? You know? Please tell us. Please tell the mentors. They need to know how to best communicate with you. If it's not effective, you know, it's a two-way street. It's a two-way communication situation. And then there's like a bonus thing, actually. You also need to be brave, right? We only have so much time. Both parties only have so much time. We cannot spend all of that trying to coax out the answers, right? Yes, everybody's awkward. We are in the game development scene. You know, everybody is like, what's it? The joke is that we always need to go out, touch grass, right? Exactly. So, but you need to be brave. You are talking to somebody who is trying their best to help you. So you've got to open up and you've got to do your best to communicate what is it that you're looking for out of this interaction, right? But of course, don't be rude lah. You sit there, you know, you menspray it. Oh, you help me. They're not going to help you. So be brave, be open, don't be rude, okay? And now for the mentors, for anybody here who is looking to be in a position of mentorship, anybody who feels like, okay, I have a lot of experience, I have a lot of things I can share, I feel like I could have a really positive impact on the incoming generation of developers. Okay, work, right? Remember that mentoring others, it creates an opportunity to not only sharpen your own skills, but also you can uplift the next generation, right? Because you're talking to somebody who's coming to you for help. It's like what they say, like, what's it, the easiest way to study is to teach what you know to somebody else, right? Same kind of thought process. So you are trying to uplift somebody else and help them using your own experience as a baseline. You're using whatever you've been exposed to previously as a means of trying to relate to the other party and get them to learn how things could be better, might be better, where they can go next. Right. So what skills can mentorship actually help with if you are the mentor in this context, right? So mentorship helps you to see things from a different perspective. You know, maybe you've been working in the industry for a decently long time, 5 years plus. You know, you're not in touch with what are the worries of the current students. You know, you don't know that they're so freaked out about like AI to what extent. You don't know how worried they are about certain things. This is your opportunity to find out. Then you can report that back to your studio and say like, hey, maybe we need to, start looking to do things in this way because woo, right? And then also meeting mentees, it will expand your existing network. The whole networking situation, it does go both ways. So not only are you going to be somebody who is introducing who you know to the next gen, but the next gen is going to be introducing you to who they know, right? Like maybe you're going to meet somebody who comes from a class or a group of really talented developers. Maybe you're going to end up finding like a whole team of amazing people that you're just like, okay, my company can hire them all in one shot because they all have been proven to work really well together. You never know, right? So the networking, it's a two-way street. It's not only like, oh, I'm giving my everything to these new up-and-comers. No. There is something that you can learn from them as well, which is fantastic. And then also, being a mentor can help you to reflect on your own actions and experiences. Because you're talking about what has happened to you, things that you have done, right? And when you're telling these things to somebody else, it's only natural that you're going to start to think about it and be like, oh yeah, I did that, right? So it is a great opportunity for reflection and growth, ultimately, and it can change you as a developer. And also, being a mentor can help to enact positive change in the industry. If you have the opportunity to teach people, to tell them about your experiences, maybe, I don't know, it can start to grow, it can really change people's mindsets, and very slowly, the industry will become a little bit better than it already was, right? And also, finally, mentorship will expand your reach as a developer overall. Something that, can't be forgotten is that people will take this mentorship opportunity as a means of expanding their reach, getting more people to know who they are. And if more people get to know who they are, there's more potential opportunities for them. So it could be beneficial in that respect as well. It's improving your professional profile, I suppose, right? Mentorship is problem solving, but it is not miracle working. Again, you are helping the mentor to gain these tools to solve their own problems. You are not fixing their lives for them. It's just because there's so many people who think like this magic dude who knows how to use Unreal 5 is going to tell me how to be a better everything. You will be surprised how many times there are people who feel that this is what's going to happen. But that's not what's going to happen, right? And as a mentor as well, you do not have to dedicate your whole life to fixing their problems as well. You're trying to enable them to be better. Isn't that ultimately better in the long run? You're giving them tools so that they can continue to be better and feel empowered in their own right. So if a mentee is struggling to build their own network in the industry, a mentor can craft an introduction and then step away to allow the mentee to establish the relationship on their own, right? You do the introduction, and then you kind of just like slither away and watch it from a distance. You're like, okay, the kid can handle himself. We're good. A mentee is also having an interpersonal issue with a colleague or teammate, and a mentor can suggest ways to move forward, but not step in directly. Could you imagine? So I have an issue with my classmate. He hates me so much, I don't know why. Then one day your mentor comes in, bang! Why are you having a problem? You want to fight, is it? You want to fight a child, is it? As a mentor, why? So no, you're not stepping in like that. Again, it's all about enabling them to have the tools to solve their own problems. We're thinking long term. We're not thinking the immediate, I'm going to fight a child. And then a mentee is trying to expand an existing idea, but coming up blank. So a mentor can make suggestions, but not take over and do the work themselves. It is the mentee's project. It is not your project. You are providing input, you are providing support, but you are not doing it. So you shouldn't feel obligated to do so, and you should also respect that boundary as well. Something as well to note is that when you're in a position of mentorship, or you're somebody who's, been in it for a bit longer, it can be so tempting to just reach in and fix the engine problem yourself. It's like, I'm just gonna, I get it. But that's not the way to do it all the time. You can give them advice, give them a couple of tries, and then when they figure out like, oh my God, I found the solution, and then you're like, oh my God, yay! Even though you knew what the solution was a week ago. But they figured it out, and they're like, I got this, and they feel so empowered, and you're like, wow, I'm a good mentor, So that's just how it goes. By mentoring the students of today, we are in fact shaping the superstars of tomorrow. And it's just so exciting to see how many of tomorrow's superstars are in the room with us today, right? Let's have a clap for everybody who's working in game development right now. It's so amazing. And it's so hard. Because you think about it, this industry, as mentioned earlier by the speakers, it is still relatively young. We have so many ways to go. We can pattern, like speaking about Malaysia, not Southeast Asia, but speaking about Malaysia, we can pattern ourselves after other countries' industries, but ultimately we are still carving our own way. So we can sort of live vicariously through other countries, sure. I mean, we are definitely living vicariously through whatever's happening in like the Western world of gaming, or Japan, or even Korea, right? And then I know like China games are getting really big at the moment, but ultimately like whatever happens, it's gonna be our story as Malaysian game developers on Malaysian soil. So we need to do our part to grow the industry in a way that is healthy, sustainable, and ultimately better for everybody. We've been in it for long enough to know that maybe there's been some stumbling blocks, but also we're still young enough that there's plenty of opportunity to rectify that. So we always need to help the superstars of tomorrow. And finally, let's talk about crafting positive mentorship experiences. Because I've talked about like, okay, mentorship is good as a mentee. Mentorship is good as a mentor. But then you want to make sure everything just like fits, right? Easy. It's turn-based combat, honestly. So when you communicate with somebody, right, you're giving them something that they can respond to. It's very much like a yes and situation. Again, if you ask a weird question, it's okay if the question's weird, but if it can't be answered, then the conversation stops. So what happens? You have to pivot topics, and then it becomes a whole thing. Can you imagine you're like, oh, I want to ask about the quality of my final year project. And then you ask like, so this one can sell ah? It's like, they cannot answer, they wouldn't know. Then suddenly your question's like, oh, the weather today is very nice. Oh, monsoon season, yeah, the rain very whoosh. It's like, no choice. So you have to give them questions that can be answered, and then they can volley back. And you continue to have this conversation, you keep it going, you maintain that relationship, and then you start to learn from one another, and everything's great, right? So always remember that you should be taking turns trying to land an effect on the other party. Both sides are only as effective as the questions that they ask. Right? The other party, the mentor, is only going to get to know you, the mentee, as well as whatever questions you're going to ask them. And also the mentor, it's based on whatever you answer or whatever you ask back. So these need to be questions that just can be answered. I know I've said it many times, but I really need to stress it because so many people get so caught up in like, I'm shy, I cannot ask questions. But then you already got the interview, you already got the discussion. So you're going to sit there, do what? Very pretty, is it? Then what happens? 30 minutes pass, ding, next person, microwave, So it's like, what are you gonna do? You need to take advantage of the opportunity. You have to be brave. You have to ask things. You have to ask things that can be answered in the first place. You need to know that everybody is trying to relate to one another, right? If you say the sky is blue, and then the mentor goes, yes, and the clouds are white. And then you go, yes, and my mother is green. What? Exactly. But then it was like, yes, the sky is blue. Oh, but in my game, the sky is red. Oh, wow, tell me more about your game with the red sky. Wow. And then suddenly you're like, Steam friends. Amazing, right? So you got to make sure everything goes pop, ba pop, ba pop. There's a rhythm to it. Communication is just something that it's a skill that you have to actively develop. Not everybody is going to have immediately off the bat, and that is completely fine. But you consciously develop it, you talk to people, you volley, you get things going, you retain information, you grow as a developer, and eventually we grow as a development scene. Always remember they're trying to relate, they're trying to help. More often than not, the mentor is not trying to be malicious, they're just asking things based on what they understand out of your question. So, always remember that communication is a two-way street. You need to talk to each other and not talk at each other. What does this mean, right? So talking to each other means that whatever you say connects with each other. Your mentor will ask you, what do you want to do in the next 5 years? And then you say, I want to work at Burger King. Okay, conversation over. Sorry, there is no like what happening there. Mentor asks, what do you want to do in the next 5 years? Oh, I want to start my own studio with my friend. Okay, we can talk about that. It's relevant, it's a valid answer, and it's something that they can bounce off on, right? But then also if it's like, if you're talking at each other, then maybe your mentor is like, yes, I am an extremely decorated game developer. I am very amazing. I am so cool. And then the mentee goes, wow. And then that's it, it ends. It can go both ways. It's not just on the mentee to ask these good questions, but if the mentor is just there to to pose about it and just like talk about how great they are. That is a bit difficult, you know? So both parties need to be in it. There needs to be an intention, and they have to talk to each other and not at each other. Ultimately, mentorship, it will benefit the industry, right? So mentorship will help to create more industry-ready talent because the talent is going to be more aware of what the industry entails. It helps to build bridges between existing talent and incoming developers. So something that was actually noted at, I believe, the most recent GDC is that a lot of information is actually being gatekept because a lot of studios, they're just not open to talking about not necessarily what's going on the inside, but it's just like, what does the industry really need? So then you get talent that's graduating or coming in from different industry, and they don't know what skill set they actually need in order to get into the studio. And then the studio says, you need industry experience. That's why you're there. And then they go, oh, sorry, door close. So it's like, there needs to be some kind of bridge, some kind of pathway for people to get to know what is actually happening. If you're somebody who is already working within industry, who has some form of experience, there's no shame in sharing these things with the incoming talent. You know, we need to be more open to talking about what's happening, what skills are actually necessary, what software people use. You know, the generic, like, learn how to use Unreal, learn how to use blueprints. Majority of the incoming talent already know that. What is the step 2? What are we doing for the sustainability of bringing people in? It's beyond just telling them, learn how to code, learn how to draw. It's also about like, how do you keep your head in the game? How do you make things happen, right? It also helps to carry forward knowledge and insight that otherwise it may be lost. You know, let's say as a developer in a studio, they were working on something internal and then maybe it got canned, but they weren't able to learn like a little bit of something along the way, and it's something that they did. You know, I'm not saying that you need to break NDA in order to like help the environment grow or anything, but surely you must have picked up something about like maybe soft skills. Like you realize like, oh, you know, some people, they really rely on scheduling in order to communicate. Some people are like really committed to work hours. You cannot message them past 7 p.m. They will get angry at you. You know, some people don't know this coming into the industry because we are getting people who are largely unaware of traditional office norms. Maybe that is something that needs to be said, right? So we are bringing forward knowledge that other people may not be aware of. And then also finally, it refocuses the talent's perspective as they may see things that the developer doesn't. You know, you might be somebody coming in and you're like, I really want to do 3D modeling. You're like, I want to be the best realistic 3D modeler. I want to mocap all my friends and do the whole thing. But then what if instead it turns out this person's really good at animation, but they've never considered that as a career? So maybe when talking to a mentor, they can point out like, hey, your animation portfolio is pretty good. Have you not considered if this is something you want to pursue? And then, you know, maybe the mentee will sit there and go, though. So then maybe that will happen. Who knows, right? That's the benefit of having a third party look at your stuff and be as unbiased as possible. Overall, again, two-way communication. You got to try your best. No stupid questions, but it's just you have to ask things that can be answered. And that's it. Thank you so much. If there's any questions, we definitely have time for questions if anybody has anything. I'm actually going to be one of the mentors available during the Mentor Cafe event later on. There's a whole cast of amazing mentors there, which is crazy. And I'm one of them. Oh my God. Okay. But some of you might see me later. Otherwise, like, this is a great opportunity to ask questions if you have any.
Okay, so if anyone have question for Miss Sophie, Azlan, please raise their hand.
Everyone's saving their questions for later, maybe. Nobody wants to ask a question on the mic. Is that the case? Are you all going for the session later? You want to save it for the mentors afterwards? I see some people nodding. Okay, I understand.
Okay, so if no one is asking, I would like to ask a few questions to you, Miss Sophie Azlan. Okay, so the first question is, how do you open the door to an ongoing mentorship after a one-time meeting?
you've exchanged contacts by right. So let's say that you had the opportunity to connect with somebody in a mentorship capacity, like a one-time thing. You had a 15-minute call, whatever, you exchange cards, great. Maybe after a few months, if you feel like, oh, there's an update here and I'd really love to get their input, send a nice email or whatever the form of contact is. Hi, I'm so-and-so. We met at da-da-da. Recently, this happened. I would love to get your input. When would your next available time be? And then you kind of just go from there.
Okay, thank you very much. I have one more question.
Sure.
Which is, what makes having a mentor different from having a lecturer in university?
So ideally, having a mentor in this context would be somebody who is actively working within industry or somebody who may give you more personalized knowledge as opposed to a lecturer themselves. Because, one of the biggest appeals of mentorship is that it's this one-on-one communication happening, right? But then as a lecturer, you have many children, But as a mentor, you just got one kid in front of you. As a lecturer, you have like, okay, this one has to worry about this one has to worry about that. They may not have the time for you to really dedicate so much, right? But as a mentor, you may be able to give them a bit more personalized input, personalized professional input. It's a little bit more focused on just you. So you may feel a bit more seen by that. You may feel a little bit more like, this is somebody who's really trying to connect with me, as opposed to the lecturer, who just may not have the capacity to do that in that moment.
Okay, so thank you very much to Miss Sophie for the question and us.
Oh, there's a question.
Okay.
Yay!
Hello. So, hi.
Hi.
So, for fresh graduates or for people who are still looking around to find like what sort of what area of expertise they want to delve deeper into, I would like to hear how you got into like being where you are right now, how you found like, oh, this is what I really want to work on. I want to be a lecturer and I want to do this and that. Just for some inputs on how you got to realizing that this is what you want to work on. Thank you.
No problem, thank you. So how I got into game development was purely that I was not a good student. Asked my mother, very bad. My best friend came back from school with me one day, and then my mother said, how can Sophie be a better student? And then my best friend, who was a speaker last year, she said, I don't know, auntie, your daughter's a slacker in my house to my mother. That's what she said, okay? So I was like, okay, maybe I have to work on myself. And I had the opportunity to go to a university that teaches game development and get to see what the students were working on, and something just clicked for me, this realization that I could make something that people enjoy using my experiences as not only a Southeast Asian, but as a Malaysian, to create these amazing things that go out into the world, to create art using digital media, using video games as like the medium for that. So that's how I got into games, and I focused on game design from that. Lecturing, on the other hand, I realized that I like to talk, but also like I realized I like to help people. I like to provide guidance and input and be a part of people's journeys. So going into lecturing just felt like a natural progression of things for me. And then starting up my own studio, when I was a student, I was insane. And I was like, I want to have my own studio before I turn 30. And then the clock started ticking. I was like, oh boy, I better go to SSM real quick. So that's why we're where we're at now. My advice for anybody who is like, I want to work in games, I don't know what I'm going to do in games. A good way is to evaluate what exactly is it that you're interested in. There has to be some element of the game that you are drawn to. We're not talking about like skills. We're just talking about like, wow, I really like The Last of Us because of the graphics. I really like The Last of Us because of, the way that the AI reacts to you so amazingly. I really like The Last of Us because I saw Pedro Pascal once, That can also be a valid reason, right? So you gotta evaluate what is it that you like about the game that you like. And then from there, you will see, okay, what does it take to do the thing that I like? And then you just have to go insane over it for a little bit. The easiest way to get good at something is to just go crazy over it for your own sake. Like I always say I have a fangirl's heart at the end of the day. So if it's something that you can just be totally consumed by for an extended period of time, you will find ways to get good at what is it that you want to create. And then from there, naturally, some skills will start to pop up. And then you'll realize, okay, I can apply these skills to other things. And then it'll just go on from there. The journey is never going to be linear. It's going to be different for everybody. So you shouldn't be comparing yourself against other people too much. But you will find what you love and how good at it you can be as you start to work on things. I hope that answers your question. Yippee.
Okay, so we can open one last question if anyone wants to ask.
Oh, 1, 2, 3. There's three. There's three. I saw 3 hands. Is it on? Is it not on?
Hi again for the third time. Hi, morning.
Hi.
Thank you so much. I'm not from the industry. I'm here for the learning vibes. Thank you so much for talking about mentorship because I
We
think
love vibes.
other professions all have like mentor program, and I really love that you guys are starting. My question is there, based on your experience in mentor-mentee and like all these things, is there a grievance mechanism that you all have in plan? Is there like a check and balance system when abuse happens, or like for the mentors when they're abused by their mentees, or likewise? Or what do you propose for mentors and mentees? Like how are you all progressing? Are they going to be a counsel? Is there any legal advices that you can give to people to draw boundaries and safeguard themselves in this event that you could recommend?
I do
Cheers.
think.
Thanks.
Oh, no problem. Okay, thank you so much for your question, by the way. So I do think at the moment there aren't we don't have a full system set in place since everything is still like we're just hitting the ground this time around, right? It's our first time going about these things. I do think that existing mentorship checks and balances, what they have done in the past is that everything is recorded, everything is always checked over by a third party just to ensure that everything is okay. And I do think that the mentorship system within the game development scene over here will probably be following suit in the near future once we see what the response is, I guess, from the Mentor Cafe and everything else that we're doing, so that we can ensure that it's like a healthy and safe environment. And you're right, it is abused not only just on the side of like, the mentor is telling off the mentee, but also like, what if the mentee sucks? What do you do then, right? People can be horrible from both ends. You're so right. So I'm pretty sure that there's just going to be a series of, we're going to record everything. We're going to make sure that everything is like set, ensure that there's systems, people that can be talked to should anything happen. And then also, it would probably be beneficial. I don't know, because I'm not part of that part of the organizing, but basically it would probably be beneficial if like every year at the end of the year we'll check in on things and we'll just be like, hey, so how was the year? And then we'll see how to reconvene it for the following year. That's probably the best way to go about it. Thank you so much for your question. Really appreciate it.
Okay, thank you very much for the question. As much as I want to like give the other two to ask you question, but we are actually running out of time and we have to end it here. But thank you very much to Miss Sophie for the very thoughtful talk.
Thank you.
Okay, so
Can I shamelessly plug really quick? Okay, so I'm actually here to represent my studio. So you can play one of our games that's being showcased under our little accelerator program, Make with Friends and Friends, over at the booths over there. We are showcasing alongside some amazing games. We're among all the student games. There's students from UW, APU, so much more. The turnout this year is kind of insane. Get your hands on the next generation of Superstars games. Really check out what's going on over there and see what is happening in your own backyard. It is so easy for us to be like, I love what's going on in the Western world of games, but what's happening at home? You don't know? Time to find out. Find out where? At the Indie Jam! Yay!